The Rich Man and His Journey. Once upon a time, in a small town, there was a man named Mr. Samuel. Mr. Samuel was known far and wide as the richest man in town. He owned big houses, fancy cars, and a large company that everyone wanted to work for. He was admired by many and envied by others. But Mr. Samuel wasn't always rich. His journey to wealth began many years ago, when he was just a boy. Humble beginnings. Mr. Samuel was born into a poor family. His father was a farmer, and his mother was a housewife. They lived in a small house with only 2 rooms. They didn't have much money, and sometimes they didn't even have enough food to eat. But despite their struggles, Mr. Samuel's parents were loving and always taught him to be honest, work hard, and never give up. When Mr. Samuel was just 10 years old, his father became very sick. The family's small income stopped, and they had to sell most of their belongings to pay for his father's treatment. But even after selling everything, they couldn't afford the expensive medicines, and soon after, his father passed away. This was a hard time for Mr. Samuel and his family. But instead of giving up, he decided to work hard and take care of his mother and younger sister. The first job, Mr. Samuel dropped out of school and started working as a helper in a small shop. He would wake up early in the morning, work all day, and come back home late at night. His job paid him very little, but he saved every penny he earned. His dream was to start his own business one day. Even though he was young, Mr. Samuel was smart. He observed everything in the shop and learned how the business worked. He noticed how the shopkeeper treated customers, managed money, and kept track of the goods. Mr. Samuel was a quick learner, and soon he knew as much about running a shop as the shopkeeper himself. A small start. After working for a few years, Mr. Samuel had saved enough money to start his own small business. He decided to open a tiny shop that sold vegetables and fruits. It wasn't much, but it was a start. He rented a small space and began selling fresh produce that he bought directly from farmers. Mr. Samuel's shop was different from others. He was always polite and friendly to his customers. He made sure to sell only the best fruits and vegetables. If a customer didn't have enough money, he would still sell them the goods and tell them they could pay later. Because of this, people started trusting him, and more customers came to his shop. Within a year, Mr. Samuel's shop became popular in the town. He was earning more money than he had ever imagined. But he didn't stop there. Expansion and growth. With the money he earned from his shop, Mr. Samuel started thinking bigger. He realized that there was a demand for more than just fruits and vegetables. People also needed rice, wheat, and other groceries. So he expanded his shop and started selling these items as well. As his business grew, he hired more workers to help him. He paid them well and treated them with respect. His employees were happy, and they worked hard to help the business succeed. Soon, Mr. Samuel's shop turned into a big grocery store. People from all over the town came to buy from his store because they knew they would get good quality products and great service. Investing in the future. As the years passed, Mr. Samuel continued to expand his business. He opened more stores in other towns and invested in new opportunities. He bought land started a small factory, and even invested in a few small companies. Mr. Samuel was always careful with his money. He didn't spend it on unnecessary luxuries. Instead, he reinvested most of his earnings back into his businesses. He knew that the more he invested, the more he could earn in the future. Because of his wise investments, Mr. Samuel's wealth grew rapidly. By the time he was 40 years old, he was one of the richest men in the region. But despite his wealth, Mr. Samuel never forgot where he came from. He remained humble and continued to work hard every day. The test of character: one day, a large corporation came to town. They wanted to buy all the local businesses and open a big shopping mall. They offered Mr. Samuel a huge amount of money to sell his stores. Many people in the town thought that Mr. Samuel would sell his business and retire as a very rich man. But Mr. Samuel had different plans. He knew that if he sold his business, many people in the town would lose their jobs. He also knew that the corporation would not care about the customers the way he did. After thinking about it for a long time, Mr. Samuel decided not to sell his business. Instead, he continued to run his stores and opened even more stores to compete with the corporation. At first, the competition was tough. The corporation offered lower prices, and many customers were tempted to shop there. But Mr. Samuel didn't give up. He improved his services, offered better deals, and made sure his stores were always clean and welcoming. Slowly, customers started coming back to his stores. They realized that Mr. Samuel cared about them and the community. They preferred to shop at his stores, even if they had to pay a little more. In the end, the corporation closed their business and left the town. Mr. Samuel's stores continued to thrive, and he became even more respected in the community. Giving back: as Mr. Samuel grew older, he began to think more about the people in his community. He knew that his wealth was a blessing, and he wanted to use it to help others. Mr. Samuel started a charity that provided free education to poor children. He believed that education was the key to a better life. Just as his knowledge of business had changed his life, his charity built schools, provided books, and even paid for teachers. Mr. Samuel also donated money to build hospitals and improve the healthcare system in the town. He wanted to make sure that no one in his community had to suffer like his father did because they couldn't afford medical treatment. He helped build homes for the homeless, provided food for the hungry, and supported small businesses by offering them loans without interest. Mr. Samuel's generosity made him loved by everyone. He was not just a rich man, he was a kind and caring person who used his wealth to make the world a better place. A life well lived. Mr. Samuel lived a long and happy life. He continued to run his businesses, but he always made time for his family and community. He remained humble, never boasting about his wealth, and always remembering the lessons his parents had taught him. When Mr. Samuel passed away at the age of 80, the entire town mourned his loss, but they also celebrated his life. They remembered him not just as a rich man, but as a man who had made a difference in their lives. Mr. Samuel's children and grandchildren continued his legacy. They ran his businesses with the same honesty and care that he had. They also continued his charitable work, helping those in need just as Mr. Samuel had always done. And so Mr. Samuel's story lived on, inspiring many to work hard, be honest, and use their success to help others. The lesson the story of Mr. Samuel teaches us that true wealth is not just about money. It's about the impact you have on the lives of others. Mr. Samuel's journey from a poor boy to a rich man was not easy, but he achieved success through hard work, honesty, and a deep care for his community. In the end, Mr. Samuel was remembered not for his money, but for his kindness and generosity. And that, more than anything, is the true measure of a rich man.